Michael Kenneth Williams, you've had a busy year in terms of television, from The Night Of to When We Rise to Hap and Leonard. Let's talk about When We Rise first, because that just wrapped up on ABC. You know, this is a show that recounts the gay rights movement in America, the entire 40-year history of it. Talk about the relevancy of that project to today.
You know, the relevancy of the project is still very prominent. I'll give you one example. You know, Pulse nightclub in Florida happened while we were filming When We Rise. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. What are the odds that, you know, I would be doing When We Rise when that god-awful event happened? And that's just the world we live in when it comes to people's rights to live their own life.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about Ken Jones, the character that you play. I mean, he's a real person. Tell us a little bit about this guy.
In my opinion, Ken Jones is the true definition of an American hero. Ken has been on the front lines of 4 wars, if you will. You know, especially if you consider yourself a black man in America and you look at Ken Jones, you know, it's like pick a face. Which battle do you want to, you know, say good going, Ken? He was in our military, in the Navy. He was on the front lines of what it was to be a black man in America during the civil rights. He was, you know, the homophobia of just whether you were black or white. He dealt with that, and then the AIDS epidemic. He was on the front lines of so many things, so much ignorance that he had to just, you know, he didn't know what was going to be the next phase of his life, how his life was going to turn out. He just went as it unfolded in front of him, and you know, took on the blows, so that, you know, right down to people, you know, HIV medicine. You know, he was the guinea pig. You know, so I have a lot of respect for him and all that he has survived.
And did you have I know he worked as a consultant on the show, so did you talk to him and draw from his own experiences for your portrayal?
Absolutely. You know, he did more than just, you know, counsel me. We actually became friends. I consider him a big brother now. And he's a remarkable, charismatic human being and so I didn't plan to get a friendship out of it. That was a bonus. So yeah, we did more. He did more than just advise me. He really guided me. Now, I would remember he's a very guarded person. He's not very emotional, but I remember a few takes. He moves very methodically. He's not a very hyper person, very cool, calm. He's collected. And he would come from behind the monitor every now and then. And, you know, he had a little glass in his eye, you know, because he was reliving some very dark moments in his life. He would come from behind the monitor with this, like, the stoic look, just give me the thumbs up and shake his head, nod his head. And that was like gold for me.
What's extraordinary in this show is that you see the development, not just of Ken Jones, but of Cleve Jones and Roma Guy and so many other people, from their youth through adulthood and the ways in which events in their lives changed them. You know, Ken Jones is portrayed as a young man by Jonathan Majors, and then as a man in adult age by you. Can you talk a bit about, I guess, the arc of portraying a character's life like that?
You know, at first I went into it, I guess, assuming that I would have to match whatever Jonathan did. You know, I wanted to do that. I wanted our performances to appear seamless, right? But then so much, when you go through that much trauma, I believe it changes a person, you know, and so I just decided to go in to the storyline that I was playing with a fresh pair of eyes and just do it from my perspective and not try to match anything that Jonathan had done.
And the other extraordinary thing is that we see so many stories about activism that ends in martyrdom. And these are people who are still alive today and still working as activists. You know, and I mean, that's such a powerful thing to see, that you can survive these kinds of hardships. Can you talk a bit about that?
You know, you talk about surviving hardships. We've all had our, I guess, fair share of that. Any human being. But when you really put yourself in the mindset of like Ken Jones specifically, he was told he had 30 days to live at best. This is someone who went and rented an apartment by the bay in San Fran, and he wanted to look at the water as he died. And 30, 40 years later, he's like, okay, well, I guess life went on. I don't know where that type of, I guess it's as we say in Brooklyn, it's do or die, you know, and what do? You can't fight it. You have to either you pick up yourselves by the bootstraps and you try to enjoy the rest of whatever life you have left, or you could, you know, falter, just, you know, crumble. And he decided to live each day to the fullest.
And the world is better for it. I wonder if there was a moment that was particularly difficult for you to play as an actor.
The moments in For When We Rise that were most difficult for me to play were the moments of his addiction and me having to go back into that mindset of addiction. That was particularly difficult for me. Right.
I wanted to talk to you about The Night Of, which is very different. But talk a little bit about the character you play in that, Freddie Knight.
You know, Freddie's a very charismatic human being. I believe Freddie is one of those scenarios when you say, man, this guy could have been anything had been given the proper opportunities. That's Freddie's I played him from that perspective. I didn't play him as a street character. He could have been president of the United States had he gone to the right college. He had that type of mentality in my mind. So there wasn't, you know, he was written with someone who has a certain type of intellect, and you know, he read books and he had certain types of conversations, and he was very manipulative, true, but he was insightful, he was thoughtful, and you know, my nephew, who is incarcerated, coming up on 20 years, has a lot of that same quality. You know, Dominic is, if you didn't know that Dominic had spent half his life in prison, you would, if he didn't tell you that, you would never know. And I think Freddie had that type of demeanor. He could hold any type of conversation and just happened to be in prison. And I think that the saddest thing and the most freeing thing that Freddie did was to accept the fact that he was never getting out of there. Some aspect of his hope has died in him. But on the other side of that, he had this like freeing, like, okay, Freddie, you're not getting out of here. Let that go, and let's just, you know, enjoy this wonderful life, and let me just make a wonderful life for myself in prison. And it's kind of beautiful and sad at the same time.
Right. Well, I think when we first meet this guy, we come at it with a certain expectations of who he's going to be, you know, based on what we've seen in other shows. Can you talk a bit about skewering those expectations?
Yeah, you know, the first time we see Freddie, he's you know, is what they do in prison. They're scoping out the new prey, you know, fresh meat coming in, and he was no different. That's what he was doing when we first see him, and you don't know when he sees Nas, you don't know what he's thinking. Is it like, I'm gonna make this guy, excuse my French, my bitch, or was there something romantic? We just don't know what was in Freddie's mind. That look he gave Nas, and it was very mysterious. You just didn't know, and I like that about him. That, you know, what you thought it was one way and it was another way, because everybody was like, Mike, what does Freddie want with this guy? I'm like, watch and see. Sorry about this.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, it's like watch and see. And I think that's how most human beings are, right? In real life, you know, we never judge a book by the cover. That's what I'm trying to say. And Freddie's no different.
And he really does care for Nas too, you find out. You know, I mean, it's almost a little heartbreaking when he.
It's very heartbreaking, you know, because his concern for Nas is that duality is some of what I explained who he is, with the hope being killed and then being free because there's nothing to live for. So now I'm free to do whatever I want. He cared about Nas, but he also wanted to manipulate a situation. He wanted to create it was manipulative. He wanted a friend, but the way he went about it was very manipulative.
Right. He goes about it in his own ways. Was there something that was particularly difficult for you to play, or some aspect of that character that was hard to get into?
You know, the world that Freddie lives in, like, you know, to put yourself in the mindset of having no hope, of knowing that my life is never going to change outside of this circumference. That's a very dark place to be. And it was frightening for me to have to, you know, the night of was 150 days for 8 hours. It was a long time to be in that dark place, and it was frightening for me.
In both cases, in both of these shows, you're working with very talented directors and writers, casts as well. What did those collaborators give you that helped you in your performance?
Well, Steve Zillian, you know, he's a master at what he does. You know, his attention to detail is almost OCD, and just to the smallest minute things, he will spend an hour like scrutinizing over it, you know, agonizing over it. And, you know, it was like, what is he doing? When you saw that finished project, the product, you understood what he was doing. He didn't want he wanted the audience to know what it feels like to go through the system. Because, you know, when you get arrested, you know, you don't go to the judge in 20 minutes because the hour has to be up by the time you got to fill the hour. No, you can spend a weekend in the tombs, as we call it, before you see the judge. And and the whole idea of being incarcerated is time, doing time. How do you get your mind around all this time? And Stephen wanted the audience to feel that, and taking that journey with him was really, it was kind of remarkable. It was dark, it was creepy, but it was interesting. Mm-hmm. And you know, for When We Rise, I think there were, I forget how many directors. I only worked with the last three, I think it was.
I think it was Dustin Lance Black, Thomas Chalamet, and did you work with D.
Yes.
Reese?
Yes, those two I worked with, and you know, it was, I don't even know if I remember much about When We Rise. I was in such a headspace for Ken, you know, and they pretty much just let me run wild. Like, you know, they just, you know, press play.
So changing gears a bit, you've also got Hap and Leonard on, which just wrapped up its second season. Tell us a little bit about how that's going, how that show is.
You know, I'm a very lucky guy when it comes to Hap and Leonard. You know, I get to go to work with one of my dear friends. We get to go play. You know, we get to play these characters and use our real life friendship in this fictitious setting. That's like gold for me. You don't get those opportunities very often. And, you know, we're telling socially conscious stories, you know, about race, about sexuality, you know, class, community, family, all these beautiful stories we get to tell, and I get to tell it with someone whose opinion I respect and whose friendship I admire, I value.
You're a very lucky man in that regard. So you received your first Emmy nomination a couple of years ago for the TV movie Bessie, where you co-starred with Queen Latifah. What did that recognition mean for you?
Wow, my first, the recognition for that particular Emmy was more important for me because of the project that it was for, and being able to work with Queen Latifah, as the world knows her, but to me, she'll always be Dana. who I've known since she was 17 and I was 19. And, you know, the obstacles that she and I have overcome, her being a kid from Newark, New Jersey, me being a kid from East Flatbush, Brooklyn. You know, a lot of our friends that we were running the streets with are not here any longer, whether they're incarcerated or dead. And for us to still be alive, to still be in each other's lives, and to have that opportunity to play what we did with Bessie, it's another one of those like, wow, you know. But and to get acknowledged by the Academy for that particular one, you know, I don't tell many people this, but I kind of like had this dream that, you know, like Dana was gonna like be able to work it out, but they called my name, she's gonna be able to give me the award, the statue, like, you know, like I was like, you know, I want, you know, I love her, man, and yeah, so yeah.
Absolutely. Lastly, I wanted to ask you, you know, you were a part of The Wire, which, full disclosure, that's my favorite show, and it's a favorite show of a lot of people. You're welcome. And not only were you a part of it, but you created such an iconic character on that show, Omar, and that opened a lot of doors for you. So I wonder, number one, since the show has garnered this reputation in the years since it's been on, what does that recognition mean for you? And what did playing Omar mean for you?
Well, you know, the recognition that The Wire gets, you know, as you know, we never got nominated or won any accolades, but the respect that show has gotten from the community, people like you know, and my coworkers, and you know, the other fellow thespians, writers that constantly come and tell me, you know, they're you know, how much they love that show. That's never ending for me. That I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about all the love that show gets, and the journey that I got to go on because of that. That was my breakout character. Omar changed me for a lot of reasons. Obviously, again, that was my breakout role, but he became my alter ego in a way. You know, that was my first big job. I was ignorant to a lot of the inner workings of the industry and how this business works. And personally, I had a very low self-esteem, right? So Omar became this persona that I was wearing, that the same guys who would beat me up and take my lunch money are now confessing their undying love for me, and now all of a sudden I'm cool. And the lines got a little blurred for me and on The Wire, and I had to like, wait a minute, they don't love you, they don't know you, they it's the character. And I had to learn how to, The Wire, the Omar, I had to learn how to detach and keep a healthy boundary around my persona, who I am, and not get so lost in the character and people's admiration for the character that it starts to walk my reality. And that kind of happened in the beginning, you know, and you know, yeah, I learned a lot on that one.
Well, Michael Kenneth Williams, thank you so much, and congratulations on The Night Of and When We Rise and Hap and Leonard and everything else that I'm sure you've got going on right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.